Good evening. In this video, we are going to be discussing content from week 3, specifically introduction, body, and conclusion of a speech. So, in the introduction of your speech, you should have first your attention gainer. Now, this can be a question, a story, an important or interesting fact or statistic that ties in kind of what you're about to talk about into your introduction. So that's the first thing that you say. You could also have a date, so like Mr. Robertson said, his example was June 13th, 2017 is the day your lives will be changed, or so on. So that's the first thing you want to talk about in your speech. The next thing would be to reveal your topic. So in Mr. Robertson's video, he stated that it was really important things to avoid, and he gave some examples of how to help us when giving our speech. Now, something to avoid is saying, so today we're going to talk about, and instead you can use something like, this morning we are going to discuss, or like I just used, this evening we are going to discuss, and then kind of move into your topic. This is something really important that we all kind of seem to do but don't really realize. Same with the conclusion, but we'll talk about that later. So then next you want to link to your audience and then show that you're credible, show your audience that you're credible. Now, so linking to your audience means making sure that you have information and your speech is about something that they want to know, that they're interested in, or that they're curious about. So an example I came up with was mud. If someone's topic was on mud versus NASA, which topic would be more interesting to most people? Now, some people might choose mud over NASA. Personally, I would like to hear more about NASA than mud and all that other interesting stuff of science and things like that. Next would be to preview your main points. So, like I said in the introduction of this video, we're going to be talking about the introduction, the body, and the conclusion of a speech. So this is obviously going to be different for each speech, but it's very important to include that into your introduction, so then when you move on to the body, which we're about to, that we know, the audience knows what you're talking about or what you're about to talk about. And we kind of have an idea of what you're going to be talking about, and we can better understand. So for an example, if I was just to start my introduction and not say what it's about or my main points or even my topic, and I just said, today is National Banana Day. So my first main point is talking about cars. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but maybe in the actual speech or in that person's eyes, the banana correlated with the car in some way. But in that example, we have no idea what the banana has to do with the car. How is it together? How is it correlated? There's just no explanation, no background information in the introduction, and they just moved right on into the body of the speech, and kind of the audience doesn't know what to do, what to think. Do we think about the banana? Do we think about the car? Okay, so that is the introduction. Now we're going to move on to the body part of the speech. So the first thing is to state your main point. So you have a topic, and then you have usually 3 main points. So you have your topic and your 3 main points. This is something that I was trying to explain to a friend, and they didn't quite understand, so I wanted to make that clear. You have a topic, and then you have 3 main points about the topic. So that's something that they all have to kind of correlate and have some interest to each other. So the next would be to explain your main point in your own words. So for my main point, I would say washing your car is beneficial when trying to obtain a job. And then after that, after a little brief explanation, you want to explain, incorporate some research, some sources, or maybe even like a short story of a personal experience. So for this example, I was driving my car to a job interview, and it was very dirty, and I didn't have time to get my usual weekly car wash that I usually get, but I couldn't this week. I went into the interview, and I didn't get the job. I asked why I didn't get the job, and they said, your car looks very, very dirty, and we don't want a dirty person working at my facility, or we don't want someone that's unorganized to work at my facility, or we don't want someone that's not motivated to wash their own car at my facility. So that's kind of where the story will tie in, and then you want to have some research. So let's say 8 out of 10 employers say they will not hire an interviewee, or employee if they have a dirty car, if they know they have a dirty car. So that would be my research part of the body paragraph. So again, we have state your main point, explain it in your own words. Now we just incorporated some research. So in case that, or in our explanation, that was my statistic research that I incorporated, and then I would explain that in my own words. So next I would say, so this statistic or research shows that if you have a dirty car and are trying to get a job, you are more likely to not get a job. And that's kind of correlating the research with into my own words, and then I would go into more depth with that. And then next you would transition to your next point, and so on. So you have your main topic and then your three main points. So the body is all of those points. So we talked about the introduction, we have the body, we just talked about the body, and okay, now we're going to move into the conclusion. So pretend that we just finished with our body paragraph. We're moving into the conclusion. So in the first part of your conclusion, you want to review those main points again. So like in your introduction, the last part of your introduction was reviewing those main points. So we have 3 main points. And then in the conclusion, we have to review those main points again. This is telling the audience, hey, we're wrapping up the we're wrapping up the speech. This is where you kind of wrap up the story that you had, the question that you had. For example, if you had a question saying, if I was asking my audience, how many of you wash your car before going to enter an interview, or how many of you wash your car once a week, or once every other week, or whatever the question is, tie that in again into the conclusion. If you had an important or interesting fact or statistic, you would want to tie that in again into the conclusion and stating why that was important. And you had those, the body where you had your main points supporting your topic, and then you have your conclusion saying, okay, this is again just telling you, the audience again, why this is important, why this whole speech is important, why it's important to you, why you are interested. And then, so that's reminding them why they're interested. And then you would have your final thought. So your final thought, in Mr. Robertson's video, he made it very clear that the final thought is very, very important. I know that in my speech last class, and also in other of my classmates, a lot of us ended with, yeah. And that's kind of crazy to me, because how many people end an actual story when they're talking to their friends or their family saying, yeah. It's just in a speech or in a class, I guess it's just nerves, but we really need to work on that. For me, that's one of the main things that pointed out to me, was that I really need to work on that and make sure that I have that solid, because I know I get really nervous in front of people. So I kind of tend to forget things, or I just want to wrap it up really quickly and just get out of there. And that's something that I need to work on. Just calming down, focusing on those last 1 to 2 sentences, make sure it's clear. It doesn't have to be like perfectly memorized word for word, but it needs to be clear, and you have to know what you're saying and then move on. So then, in conclusion, we discussed the intro, the body, and the conclusion of your speech or a speech. And I noticed for me that I have a lot of things that I need to improve on that I learned from the content from week 3, and I hope that I helped explain some of it to you, or you learned something from this video. Thank you.